politics 2024. It's a couple of things that we have to get into. We have to talk a little bit about Trump, a little bit about Biden. But first, let's talk about the right-wing commentaries. Right-wing activists, podcast host, mediocre bullshit con artists. For one, let's talk about Charlie Kirk. A couple of weeks ago, I made a comment on Charlie Kirk after he went on his podcast and spoke out about DEI, which is diversity and equity and inclusion. And he said something around the lines of, if there's a black pilot on a plane, that he would be worried if the he would be worried if the black pilot is qualified. Here's that clip.
Again, I didn't say anything controversial. It really isn't, because what I was saying was completely true. However, it wasn't the whole point I was making. If you listen carefully, the point I was making is that DEI creates unwholesome thoughts. Yeah. Not that I like those thoughts. I think
everyone knew the point.
Everyone knows. You have to intentionally act stupid.
No, but that was the point I was making is not a controversial one. Is I said DEI actually makes us worse people. Again, I didn't say anything controversial. It really isn't, because
it really is. It really is, and I'm gonna tell you guys why and how. So he said,
"You want to go thought crime? Like, I'm sorry, if I see a black pilot, I'm gonna be like, boy, I hope he's qualified." You want to go?
And even his face when he said it, right? Look at his face when he said it, because he think he just said he think he's saying some shit. And so I talked about it because it was taken as a racist trope. It was taken as a ignorant statement. And he and a lot of people who follow him, and I guess that support him, they feel that I'm racist for thinking that he is racist. Or for even showing pride in black culture, or for even not agreeing with things that are anti-black. It's one thing to not really be for the culture, and it's another thing to be anti-black. You know? So I spoke out about interracial relationships. I've dated outside of my race before. I don't really see it as, you know, the end all be all. I don't see it as, you know, an absolute trade like they Benedict Arnold of the race, but we do call them double agents because it is rather peculiar that a lot of black successful athletes, actors, basically men with money, go for white women, or white women go for them, however it goes. So I pointed that out, and in my comments lately on my YouTube, people have been calling me racist. They have been calling me out for not doing the research on Charlie Kirk. That Charlie Kirk was not being racist towards black people. He was just showing that DEI is wrong, and it gives unfavorable favoritism or unfavorable advantages to people who are not qualified. So these folks just was coming at me all week long about my comments about Charlie Kirk after he said that bullshit that he said. But I have to thank them. I have to be thankful for the fact that they actually pointed these things out, because it made me do my research. It made me look up who Charlie Kirk is, look up the things that he's done in the past, They said that I was taking his comments out of context and that he's not that much of a bad guy. He's pretty smart and I'm pretty dumb. But let's show here a picture of black pilots. And we know that being a pilot has been monopolized by white folks, white men for a very long time. I ain't gonna just say white folks. It's a position that only white men have had for a very long time. It's a minority when you speak or even think of black pilots flying planes. So we can use more black pilots in all airlines. And just because a person is black doesn't mean, and just because they're hired because of DEI policies, I think that it's stupid to think that you should question their qualifications because they're hired under that policy. When actuality, DEI is not only targeting black people. DEI, which is diversity, equity, and inclusion, targets a mixture. It targets a mixture of races and cultures and genders, like women, Asians, Indians, Arabians, Muslim culture, and also blacks. Or we can just say POC, people of color. So when Charlie Kirk takes aim at, when I see a black pilot, I'm going to think, boy, is he qualified. I took that as a racist statement that he's practically only saying to rile up a base, to monger fear, to stir up the pot of right-wing conservative white men who feel that they're losing their spot as the rulers of a country. I've taken it as white supremacy at its finest. And so these folks called me out, said that I was racist, and said, I don't know shit, and yada, yada, yada. And so I decided to do my research. By the way, I also seen Candace Owen say some old dumbass shit that was similar to what Charlie Kirk said. And Candace Owens is not a dummy by far. She's a very intelligent woman. But she also is a coon most of the time. And she's also aligned herself with right-wing conservatives, in which she will say things just to rile up the base and make those folks proud. And, stir up that racist pot that they love and absolutely will pay money to get a black woman to be on their side. So she went a step further, though. Candace Owens said if she's seen a woman that she would question their qualifications. So it just made me think about it. I was like, okay, I see what's going on. Let me do a little research. Let me see what these folks is talking about. Maybe I was right. I mean, maybe I was wrong, man. Maybe
Charlie Kirk, who I worked for and with for years,
there it is,
about
right
racist. He says that that's going to be his first thought if he sees a black pilot. And you know what? I said the exact same thing on this show just a couple of weeks ago.
Reality the left has created.
So you can see why the left loved that clip and why they're now calling Charlie Kirk, who I worked for and with for years.
First point, who I worked for and with for years. Candace Owens automatically admitting that whose side she on or why she's biased. Because you're going to be biased for your boss who pays you a very nice wage.
An avowed racist. He says that that's going to be his first thought if he sees a black pilot. And you know what? I said the exact same thing on this show just a couple of weeks ago. I remarked that now when I even am watching a commercial, if I see a commercial and I see a black person, an Hispanic person, an Asian person, my thought process is, did they just get this because DEI? I no longer think the person is qualified. Way back when, just a few short years ago, when I used to watch movies and I used to see a black character, I always just thought it's because he's a great actor. Denzel Washington, one of the greatest actors of our time. Like, he's amazing, obviously. But now my experience has changed because I recognize that we no longer live in a meritocracy. And I'm thinking, they hired that person because they had to fulfill the quota. Oh, we must have at least X amount of black people. And I don't think that they deserve to be in those spaces anymore. And it makes me upset that that's my thought process when I see a commercial and when I see a movie. Is this person actually even a good actor, or are they just checking a box? But unfortunately, that is the reality of what happens when it comes to DEI. And what he is remarking on is true. I would be terrified if I got onto a plane and I saw a woman flying the plane. And I know that we have the United CEO saying that he just wants to fulfill a quota. He just wants there to be more women and wants there to be more black people. And he's not concerned at first with qualifications. That is something that should alarm all of us, guys, honestly.
So I'm going to stop her right there. I'm going to stop her right there because you sound like a damn fool, Candace. Because now, when I see a woman being a commentator for conservatives, a black woman at that, I'm going to think to myself, is she qualified? Or is she just a paid puppet by the right-wing powers that be? Is she just there because she wants to be? Or is she there because she wants to be doing good things? Or is she there because she wants to be paid very, very well? And so it just made me kind of just think even deeper. And it made me what they call that word woke, which it seems to be another word for caring about black issues. You're woke. So yeah, I start to wake up even more. I start to do a little more research. And I looked up who Charlie Kirk was. And of course, I discovered that Charlie Kirk didn't graduate from college. I didn't either, but I discovered that he was born in Chicago, that he had issues with liberal policies in high school, and that he wrote an article about his issues with liberal policies, and he was selected, handpicked almost, to be this new young leader and media to spew right-wing bullshit. And some conservative views can possibly be okay. But when I just start to do the research and I start to see how his organization, Turning Point USA, was started off as a nonprofit organization for him to turn young, vibrant leaders of the country into Republican leaders, and turn, young men, mostly maybe I'll just say white men, but we'll just say young men, turn them into Republicans. I start to say, what the hell? Like, what? That's interesting. I wonder how he getting, what kind of money he getting for that. And so then I started doing my research even more. I started becoming more woke. I started doing, I started waking up. And here's what I discovered. Turning Point USA. Kirk has been the CEO, chief fundraiser, and public face of Turning Point since its founding. He co-founded the organization in 2012 at the age of 18. According to the New York Times, he has turned the organization into a well-funded media operation backed by conservative mega donors like the Wyoming businessman Foster Friess. We'll talk. We may talk about him, but it's plenty white man with money. TPUSA's activities include publication of the Professor Watch List and the School Board Watch List. In 2020, but wait. Let's go a little bit. Let's go a bit before that. Let's go a bit before that. Born in Chicago, Arlington Heights. Oddly enough, we're both Libras. My birthday's October 13th. His is October 14th, 1993. I'm 13 years his senior. He was a part of the Boy Scouts of America. I was a Weeblo for a couple of weeks. He also wrote an essay for Breitbart News alleging liberal bias in high school textbooks, which led to an appearance on Fox Business. As a subsequent speaker at Benedictine University Youth Empowerment Day, Kirk met Bill Montgomery, a retiree more than 50 years his senior, who was then a Tea Party-backed legislative candidate. Montgomery encouraged Kirk to get engaged in political activism full-time for the money. He subsequently founded Turning Point USA, a grassroots organization to rival liberal groups such as MoveOn.org. At the 2012 Republican National Convention, Kirk met Foster Friess, a prominent Republican donor, and persuaded him to finance the organization. Kirk briefly attended Harper College and community college near Chicago, but dropped out without having completed any degree or certificate. Why would he need a degree? He's already, So that's a little bit of, background. So let's keep it going. In 2020, ProPublica investigated the finances of Turning Point USA and claimed in their report that the organization made misleading financial claims, that the audits were not done by an independent auditor, and that the leaders had enriched themselves while advocating for Trump. ProPublica also reported that Kirk's salary from TPUSA had increased from $27,000 a year to nearly $300,000 a year, and that he had bought a $850,000 condo in Longboat Key, Florida. He's now a Florida resident. In 2020, Turning Point USA had a $39.2 million in revenue. Yes, $39.2 million in revenue for a small organization like Turning Point USA that was supposed to rival liberal organizations, to get and recruit right-wing conservatives. Kirk earned a salary of more than $325,000 from Turning Point USA and related organizations. So then I asked myself, damn, he getting paid a whole lot of money. Go from $30,000 a year to $325,000? Buying $1 million condos and such in Florida? I wonder what that come with. A whole lot of control. But, seems like he's down for it. And so I started to say, damn, these folks got a lot of money, pay out. These folks can control who they like and have people say things in the media that may be false, that might not be. I mean, I'll just say true, but maybe a little conspiracy driven. In 2018 of December, Kirk falsely claimed that protesters in the French Yellow Vest movement chanted, "We want Trump." These false claims were later repeated by President Trump himself. In defending the Trump administration response to COVID pandemic, Kirk falsely stated that during the H1N1 swine flu pandemic, it took President Obama millions infected and over 1,000 deaths to declare a public health emergency. These were false statements. Kirk also spread falsehoods about voter fraud and the COVID-19 pandemic. According to Forbes, Kirk is known for his repudiation of liberal college education and embrace of pro-Trump conspiracy theories. On July 7, 2018, Kirk falsely claimed on social media that the Justice Department statistics showed an increase in human trafficking arrests from 1,952 in the year 2016 to 6,087 in the first half of 2018. He deleted the tweet without an explanation the next day after a fact checker had pointed out that the false 2018 number had originated from the conspiracy site 8chan. So he's basically spreading conspiracy theories and falsehoods and racist lies. Kirk has said the concept of white privilege is a myth and a racist lie. Kirk served on President Donald Trump's 1776 commission, a response to the 1619 project. And, during September of 2021 episode of his show, The Charlie Kirk Show, he called for Texas to create a citizen force and have them deport Haitians. And it goes on and on. This guy, as from my research, has a history for spreading falsehoods, bullshit, and conspiracy theories. But they calling me a fool and they calling me a racist. That was interesting. And so I had to thank them folks. I was like, bruh, I appreciate y'all. Because I didn't know how much of a piece of shit that this guy Charlie Kirk was until I started doing the research. I didn't know, that they actually have puppet masters who control the media and the things that commenters like Charlie Kirk spew on his show that's so wellly funded by their mega donors who keep his bank account banking, for lack of better words. I'm a little tired, so y'all gotta excuse me, but I'm also tired of the bullshit. And I'm just wondering, like, damn, well, how do I combat this type of rhetoric? How do I combat such powerful, well-funded, conspiracy throwing machine that the conservatives have here with Turning Point USA, the Charlie Kirk Show, the Candace Owens podcast, and so on and so forth. And so in this rabbit hole, I started to delve and I started to learn so much more information and so many different corporations that do some bullshit and really nobody really talks about it because we really don't know what's going on. Here was another one. On January 5th, 2021, right before the day before the Washington protests that led to the storming of the United States Capitol, Kirk wrote on Twitter that Turning Point Action and Students for Trump were sending more than 80 buses of patriots to D.C. to fight for this president. A spokesman for Turning Point said that the groups ended up sending 7 buses, not 80. with 350 students in all. So they wanted to send 80 buses, but they only sent 7. In the lead up to the storming of the Capitol, Kirk said he was getting 500 emails a minute calling for a civil war, calling for being a traitor and treason to the country. Publix heiress Julie Fancelli. All right, this is the important part. Publix heiress Julie Fancelli gave Charlie Kirk organization $1.25 million to fund the buses to January 6th event. Kirk also was paid $60,000 for Kimberly G to speak at the Trump rally. So I'm like, damn. He got paid $1,250,000 to get 7 buses with 350 people to go to Washington? Damn, I didn't know buses were so expensive. I'm in the wrong business. Shit. Charlie Kirk and the right-wing conservative commentary, that's big business. That's some big bank these guys are making. Cause they damn sure don't take $1 million. I'm not that great at math. I might be, but my math don't say that it takes $1 million to get 7 buses. And that ain't really what my math. And then another $60,000 for somebody to speak at a Trump rally at the Capitol that they basically was trying to stop the inauguration of a brand new president, which sounds a lot like insurrection, which sounds a lot like treason in the country. It also says afterward, Kirk said violent acts at the Capitol were not an insurrection and did not represent mainstream Trump supporters. But my eyes must have deceived me because I thought I seen an insurrection. I thought I seen people threatening the lives of people that were doing their duty to the country. And so then they try to switch it all up. So I was like, damn. It made me want to do more research about this Julie Fancelli person who was a Publix heiress and who gave $1 million to get people down to the Capitol because they wanted 80 buses. You know how many people that would have